Hello, people. Welcome to the weekly Python show. We have great guests today, and we don't have so much time because it's a late night edition. So I will skip the news for today. I think that most of the news are coming from our speakers themselves. So we have three speakers today. First is Stefania. She'll talk about the BigDive. It's a training, I think, for data scientists. She will tell you better about it.
Hello.
Stefania, great to see you.
Great to see you as well. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for finding time. You know, this year, I mean, I'm so used to see you every year on PyCon Italia in Florence. This year didn't happen, so we had to fix it somehow. Right?
We met.
But you do quite some online events, or you're involved in this training program as well.
Many. During the talk at the beginning, I will show a little bit of the communities, how to get involved in communities and the data science journey, and then BigDive. But yeah, quite a lot of events online. Too many.
So before going to your slides, I want to have a little introduction of you from you yourself. How about you tell us a bit of your background? I know you're a data scientist.
Yeah.
That's right? You're a data scientist. You live in Torino.
Turin. Now, yes. Turin.
Like Alessandro Molina. He was on our show.
We crossed paths a lot of times.
So is it a Python spot?
He was a teacher in BigDive as well, and nice. in other courses. So we teach together, went PyCon together, and other collaboration are secrets or not that secret, but well, we'll see.
Good. Then for our viewers, remember, if you want to go to Italy and see some Pythonists, go to Turin.
I love this drum kit, this drum session.
I love it too. I mean, this is a show, right? The show needs some wow, and this is the wow. I'm so happy I know Boris. But now it's not his turn. Now it's your turn, and you are the wow of right now. So what are you going to tell us about?
Keep you engaged enough.
What's your topic for today?
So today I will mention a little bit more of my background and how I got into Python and the data science world. It's a journey because we are here, you know, and we can't travel. So I thought in a way to let you travel through Europe, through knowledge, and through communities. So you can travel even staying in the home.
Okay, that sounds interesting. Good. So I assume that everything works now because I see comments greeting us. It means they perhaps can understand us, which is a good sign. So if something is wrong, drop in comments. Now I think I will just leave you with Stefania and her presentation, and then we continue with the discussion together again. Oh, Valeria is online. I see a comment from Valeria. Unfortunately, this still does not decode emojis, I guess. But yes, he is with you. Okay, we can see your slides now.
Okay, super. So let's start. As I mentioned before, I want to bring you in a trip around Europe, knowledge, and the communities. And briefly, I now data scientist topics. Topics is an internet exchange. So at the beginning was working with internet to provide the open data system for Piedmont, is a technical partners for many different projects, and over the year is developing also more activity relating to in relation to in relation to the data science community, different events, and especially also BigDive, this amazing training that I'm going to show you at the end, because there is an early bird prize, and I really, really want that everyone that wants to participate take this opportunity. So let's start with this journey among open source communities. So my journey, my approach to open source started when I was studying physics. In physics, we back then we program in C. In MATLAB, that was this origin of the data science. Unfortunately, MATLAB is proprietary, and my connection to the open source and free software started with Linux, and that's for the penguin showing here to bring more joy, the joy of the community as well. So I was involved in the Linux user group in Alessandria. Alessandria is a city in Piedmont, northwest Italy, where I study physics as well. And for the first time, I get involved in this kind of community. So I get involved in the Linux Day, and it was very nice to see how the people can get together around the project, open source or for free software in this case. And that was my first experience in the open source community. Then what's happened is that I moved to London for some years. And in London, I was there. I started actually just before this internship. I was studying Python, learn Python the hard way. And funny enough, when I joined this internship, I started learning Ruby the hard way. During this internship, they have to teach us, and they teach us through the same guide for Python. And I was getting more into Python, both the language and the British comedy. And then they teach us Java as well. The interesting things that I learned in London, aside the fact that even in a big data World Conference, they were able to completely misspell my name instead of the F, the PH. So it was very funny that sometimes I show these the big data, etc. But the bias behind the data is always there. Like in Italy, they always put Delprete in 2 different words. The Italian bias, the English bias is put the PH instead of F. And aside that, something very interesting that I noticed in London in this particular internship is that there was this project, Rapid FTR, that was it was not mandatory at all in the internship, and people were ordering pizza to stay together and working in this open source open project, and that was about reconnecting people that got lost in some particular remote places in the world. UNICEF support that, and then other companies now support that. And it was very interesting to me to see people that after work decide to volunteer for a project. And even if not so much stuff is done as a as a working schedule, you can feel the connection between these people, and to meet more people mind-like that want to contribute, even if it's not working time. And it started to grow in me this interest in volunteering and in the open source projects. But London is very vast. I was there when the Shard, this monument, was built, and unlikely they lighten up in red as well. And Twitter went crazy and put the Eye of Sauron from Lord of the Ring on the top of this building. And then I put that because let me think that London is a very, very big city. It's wonderful. I'm in love in London. But it's tricky to see everything that was happening in the city. I got in contact with many interesting events, but mostly randomly. Like there was a Girl Geek meetup happening inside the company where I worked. Then I gave a talk about LaTeX at the time in another geek meetup. But it's challenging to have really a vision of everything that is happening in the city. So I ended up looking for conferences, and I discovered the Mass Jam as well. And there is a reason between some other some other community that I'm going to mention to you. Because what's happening is that every time that I move in another city, I was looking more for these things. I was always looking for jazz club and vegan scene, but then I started to look for the tech scenes and the open source communities that was there as well. So a lot of things happen in London. I have a lot of stories to tell you. If you're more interested in that, I'm happy to connect on that. But then some years after, I moved in Berlin. I moved in Berlin again. I was working with Java and Ruby for QA testing in the company that was GoEuro, back in the wall in the back, that now his name is Omio. But it's interesting because I connected with the Mozilla community and I started to learn Python again. So Python was back in the scene and I was studying a lot Python. This in the back was one of my Mozilla bro that we worked to create more events for the Mozilla community. And he was giving me these tricks, these games to solve in Python. So it was very helpful. And it was interesting also that quite randomly we discovered that he was starting working for the same company where I worked. And the thing is that another part of me that was very interested that I discovered in London is maths games, maths jams. There wasn't any in Berlin, so I started one. And there's a suggestion that I want to give you. If there is a scene, if you're from a small city or a bigger city and within your area you don't have any connection with people, just create an event and people will come. And is interested to provide this space where the space wasn't there in order to see, in order to make the connection. And something very interesting is that at the end, more people that was my friends, developers, colleagues, comes to the math jam. And at the end, I was doing the maths and other people do the maths. And how cool is that? The woman that is there was a mathematician from Poland that came to Berlin for a maths conference and just joined us at the math jam. But the fact is that with my colleague developers, at the end, we ended up solving the maths problem in Python, just writing the code in Python to solve this maths game. And usually local community meet together for a bigger gatherings. And the big maths jam, I ended up giving a lightning talk about sometimes, even in Turin, we just solved some of the tricks in Python as well. At the time, I went back also to Go, not the language, but the games. That then DeepMind ruined the life for Go players. And you always learn something, but it was tricky to accept the loss from AlphaZero, etc. And I started also in Rust. Rust is a language that I continue to start again. And that's for Mozilla community. Rust is a language created in Mozilla Research, etc. And I was very interested to really feel the community. So in Berlin, I really enjoy discover new community and create also new community. I stayed in Berlin for some years, and then for different reasons, family reasons, etc., I went back to Italy. And the thing is that everything that I discovered and created along the way, I bring that with me. So in Turin, there wasn't directly a math jam or a Mozilla community or an effective altruism community that I discovered in Berlin. And so I created with other people these great communities. And it's happened that more people joined in all of them because behind the math jam, as I mentioned, sometimes we ended up coding. And here, this is a small figure, but there is some students for maths and physics. There is some of my colleagues in BigDive that we teach together. And so we continue to learn together. Here is a scene from the Rust Mozilla meetup. And again, it was very, very interesting to meet all together and connect with Italian community as well. And here is effective altruism. Effective altruism, to be very brief, is how to donate your energy or time to the causes that are less in the eye of the people, even if they have a big impact. And just yesterday, we talked about considering aging was a very futuristic topic as a main cause or not. And by really using the rational thinking and count the number and the impact. And something that I want to work on is to understand how the open source and free software and the access to internet itself can really be a benefit of human rights. And because access to internet is also knowledge, and the impact is very big. And this is something that I was going to work on. So if anyone interested, feel free to join me. These could be big questions, but yeah, big questions too. But the thing is that it's important sometimes to, ask the big question, and you always find someone to connect. So what's happening? Echo? Okay. What's happening when I was going back to Italy is also that for some years I was studying Python and especially data science. And I ended up discovering this amazing community in Italy that I met also Anthony in there. And here were the yellow shirts that was volunteering in there. And NumFocus is an association that's providing the support for the main libraries in Python for data science. And I was volunteering here was the EuroPython. I ended up draw the logo of Pandas. Now Pandas changed the logo as well. Pandas is a library for managing data frames and data sets. And it's very interesting because they give us the opportunity to also do Pandas sprint during one of the events in the Python community in Turin. Here is a scene of BigDive that I was going to mention just the slide after this amazing training that we do. And this is DataBeers. Basically, these Spanish beers that support events. But what's happened when everything collides together? So it's happened that last year was still a good one in my team in PyCon. I think it was PyCon 9 in Florence. It's happened that I was working for topics, and topics was connecting with someone to hire someone. So was doing this lightning talk to hire someone in topics, sharing the work for BigDive while I was volunteering for Python and NumFocus. So people start to get crazy, and they also asked me to do a lightning talk for DataBeers there. And I was just coming back from an astronautic convention, so I do just lightning talk about astronautics data and data science. And so when you get crazy at the end, you just want to have fun. So I was volunteering for NumFocus. I was starting to put stickers and in the faces of people. And I can share this later or connect it with the links. And but the power of the community is very, very big. So I really suggested to go through all the communities that are in your local area, or really create something new and connect to new people. We are now remotely, but also thanks to the PythonShow, we are connecting again. So I briefly mentioned BigDive. BigDive was a fantastic opportunity where we teach different people. Long enough. So basically, we teach in Turin, in Bologna, in Madrid, for companies, also for non-profit organization, for core data, and different students all around the world. We sometimes are from India, of course, Italy, Spain, UK, Switzerland. This is one of the scenes where all the students are working together on different projects. This in particular was last year was a space edition with space data. We collaborate with ESA. INRIM is a laboratory in Turin. And this is our BigDive Instagram, where we have some of the testimonials here. So if you want to watch it, feel free to do that. To go more in details, this year we have 4 fantastic courses. Fun fact is fun fact, sorry. In the first Python, I was introducing and see this André Panisson. It is an amazing deep learning expert. And the same year I meet in BigDive, and he was teaching there this deep learning as well. So we reconnect together. It's funny how people connect in different ways. And I taught in different courses, the private ones, and this open, it was the summer course, but due to the circumstances is the autumn course right now. And we divided in 4 different modules. So I can briefly, no, actually I have it already here. So what I want to underline is the fact that only 3 days and 4 hours and 2 minutes and 80 seconds are missing for the early bird discount. These are our offering right now. We have the first course is about Python and data science. So, and this amazing interactive map that show the different skills. You can see all the curriculum in here. You can feel free to ask all the questions. And, you know, for the student, we really want to get the best experience that can have. The second is more intensive in machine learning and deep learning. The third is about visualizing data, and the data engineering is the last one. So if you're interested in that, I really suggest you to join, to ask questions, to see perhaps the review. I'm really happy to answer all your questions about it. You can also find a longer webinar in the website. You can go there and see the webinar all together, because now probably is I can explain, of course, all the syllabus, and this is not the situation. And you can watch all the webinars, and I really hope that if you're interested, you can apply before Sunday, so you can have the discount. So it was the story. I know it probably was a lot. I hope that you enjoy the journey between the different cities and different communities. I want to showcase the main message was to really get into it and create something if it's not there. These are my contacts, and let me know if there is any question or anything that you want to know about something that I said before.
It was a nice presentation. I will show you one of the first ones. Valeria is wondering if your surname is not 2 words. This is surprising.
No, my surname is not 2 words. And you should know this person is really a tricky person.
All right. Well done. Thank you very much. It's good to see so many people online listening to us, reacting to us. Cheers to St. Petersburg, Irina. Now, I guess it's a question for question time. Audience, you can drop questions and comments. Meanwhile, I will ask my own questions. So first, yes. How does Corona affect the BigDive? Was there a major change, or?
Yeah, there are major change because the first module should have happened in May. Because usually BigDive lasts for 4 weeks during the summer, and there are 4 weeks altogether. So this year, for the first time, we divided in 4 different courses and 4 different weeks. It's still intense, but was really intense. So, and sometimes perhaps some people know already Python, so they want to skip one. And our plan was to go from May, June, July, and then do the last one in September, and eventually do a hackathon to wrap up all the modules. Now you move it the final decision was at the end of March. We move it. The first one will be in September, and then October, November, and December. But we also considering do the one in September eventually online. Like we have a plan B for that, and we still want to know how it's working, because Turing at the moment the numbers are good, but the people are enjoy the spring too much, perhaps. So I'm a little worried about that.
But
yeah, the others, yeah.
Is it such a problem to move online? It's interesting to ask your opinion, because the next speaker, Marc-Andre, will be talking exactly about moving the EuroPython online. So it's interesting to see how does that work for you and for him.
Yeah, we really thought about that. And that do for no-profit association, we already decided to do everything online. But BigDive, I showed some of the images of the class. If you go to Instagram or their social, you can see like the energy to collaborate together is really, really is another thing, because you can do a lot of courses online, and we already, while thinking about an online version, we were thinking about how to maintain this kind of engagement with little breaks where people can talk to each other, like not related to the code, but really hang out together. To give an example, the last edition of BigDive, we have people really being close friends. They went to the mountain together and they write topics as a human version. Like each person was a TOPEX, with you, because they were really engaged and they went to the mountain together. And
true,
is a big value, and we try to maintain it. If we can't, you do what you have to do. But
that's a good point. Okay, thank you. We have a question from Valeria. How would you evaluate your journey to data science, going through different languages and technologies rather than just Python, which seems to be mostly the case?
Okay, and so for data science, I saw a little bit of R as well, because I was curious, basically. And curiosity is a big thing for me that sometimes I have to contain to do not spread out too much. But at the end, Python is the most complete, and especially for the learning curve is amazing, because if you do a course in Python, you can explain all the general things, and people start getting. There is very simple example that can be explained in the class. Now, Jupyter notebooks, etc., perhaps make people just a little bit lazy to get the whole point on how a script is programmed. So when a person teach about Python, perhaps it's important to also just translate it in a script, just to give the whole picture. I checked, because I'm interested in Rust in general, because I'm connected with Mozilla, to see if they have some libraries that they're working on machine learning, but they still, perhaps later on, for very, very high demand, they can run some scripts in other languages, in C and Rust. But for learning, Python is the best for my these. They didn't check Julia that much, but for right now, Python, I think, is the best way to go. It's interesting to see other languages, because if you compare, you can know more about the value of what you get. If you saw just one part of the picture, it's challenging to see what's behind. So, for example, also the sprint, the Panda sprint that I mentioned was very interesting to show the people, and it was a string documentation sprint. You can see they give us, sorry, I give just this example because it was interesting for this purpose. It was people from academia as well, and people directly from Python. But to know how you can directly contribute, Okay. How you can directly contribute is interesting to see these things that you can contribute to even the documentation. And yeah, I went a little bit out of word with this example, but I think it's important that people can contribute to the code as well. And Python is amazing for both things. So both for learning and to see behind the curtains.
It's the right thing to say on this show. Thank you. There is one more question. Let's read it out. How do you suggest to start career for those who are new to Python programming? Let me guess, BigDive?
BigDive. So if you're a really beginner, I started to do this little quiz, and they're very basics. So the last week was about a list, and this list was have some typos, etc. And then you have to guess what are the typos. And this week, I think yesterday was Wednesday, yeah, was about pandas. So, and the other question was which your parameters that use more. But yeah, the best thing is to get dirty, is to read other people's code. I remember my first project I was interested in astronautics, and my first project that I think is still very old, so don't look for it, was about EVA, the extravehicular walks activity. So where people in the International Space Station go out to fix something, but they out in the space, and they found this data set about the length of duration of the EVA, but it was crazy because it was a very, very bad data set. So, you know, right now, for example, in Kaggle, you can see data sets that are very well done and very ordered, and then you can start with that. But I think that the drive in the patient to find some tricky data sets and then to learn how to fix it, to clear it, to clean the dates, etc., this gives you more motivation. So my suggestion is think about your own passion, find a data set for it, and you can start on Jupyter Notebooks or even in Google Colab if you want, and start to do something. There is amazing, BigDive is great, it's perfect. But even in PyData YouTube channel, you can find a lot of videos. The PyCon in Florence, EuroPython, all the talks are recorded. So one thing that PyCon gave to me the first time that I was volunteering there is that I say, okay, I can actually understand a lot of things in here. Nice. So study by yourself and then get exposed to the things that you don't understand, and then try to understand yourself. And remember, BigDive is going to end the early prices on Sunday. So if you want to get it, I hope that just do the application. If something is missing in the application, you can figure it out later. But I want people to get discount.
That was such an inspiring answer that I wanted to sign up myself, but it's late. Oh. I'm too old for it. Okay, Stefania, since we talk so much about BigDive, we can put also a link in description that I need to ask you first, because it's not a free thing. So you vouch for it, you say that's a real thing. It's not some funny, messy course. That's a real thing for data scientists, because you have a lot of respect in Python community. So if you say it, we'll just share it everywhere.
Yeah. I share the things that I like, and well, I teach in there in these last 3 years. But the people, also for example, we always have something very interesting that I want to share briefly, is that I was involved in BigDive. Of course, in Mozilla. And Mozilla have this speech recognition algorithm written in Python in TensorFlow, and they try in Keras, but in TensorFlow. So I was connected with one of the maintainer of this speech in Paris, and I invited him in BigDive to be a guest. And long story short, the night where he gave the speech, we started this project also in Italian, So Common Voice is a project to collect all the voices in Italian, in English, in every language. So another great project is Common Voice. And you can, the things that I want to underline that maybe I didn't underline that well, just last sentence, that you can contribute to open source in many different ways. That could be also your voice. If you go to, I think it's voice.mozilla.org. So the big things about BigDive is that you really get in contact with the expert in the field. You can bombard them with questions. We have a Slack, and the things to be in person is really, you can see these people get crazy. Like the last part where they have the mentors, the guys are very, you can see in some images, they're like these or like these, because they have to do a lot of work. But the mentor are there, so you can feel it that they really enjoyed the experience to be together. I hope that at least for the last 3 courses they can be live in Turin. But if not, I think it will be great also online.
Okay, good. Then that was a great talk, but we are out of time. So thank you so much. If you stay online, then there is another opportunity to chat with Stefania after the show today. This is the meetupish part where we all are invited to the Skype call. But for now, I want to say you big thank you, Stefania, for finding your time for this performance. Great. So now we will jump to our next speaker, Marc-Andre. Without any break, just straight to it. Marc, hello. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, and your background is wonderful. Will that be also the EuroPython online background for the speakers?
We're working on it. So we are still figuring out how to do things. Mm-hmm. We won't make things too difficult for them, so they have enough to care about in order to get their talk going and make sure that everything works out. So we can make a few suggestions and also provide these backgrounds to them. So yeah, thank you very much for inviting me, and I hope I can contribute a bit to your Python show.
I already see the first comment is EuroPython with this love eyes. So I guess it means some support for you from St. Petersburg.
I do have a few slides to show, so maybe I should go through those slides first to summarize basically how we got to where we are now. Maybe that's
a good plan.
A good start.
Yes. Okay, perfect.
Okay, excellent. Excellent drummer there.
Thank you, Boris, too.
Thank you, Boris.
All right, Mark, the stage is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. So I just wanted to show you a few things about how we started the organization and how we got to the online event. As you all know, we've been doing EuroPython for a very long time. We started in 2002. We did it every single year. And we also started this year to plan everything for the event in Dublin. We started the organization in November, signed the contracts, arranged all the things that you have to arrange for a conference, like getting catering organized, getting the agreement set up with all kinds of different vendors. And then, we had the situation with COVID-19. And we started to get worried in February about this, and then as March came closer, we started to get even more worried because we saw that lots and lots of countries started to basically consider doing a lockdown. And we found ourselves in a situation which was a very poor situation for us because we had already signed all the contracts, we entered agreements, we had to pay the initial fees for the venue, for example, already. And then the situation was that we wanted to do the conference in July, but it was March. And so at that point, there were no regulations in place yet to basically have all large events, because we are an event that has more than 1,000 people. We fall under this large event clause that many lockdowns have. And so we had to basically come to some kind of conclusion of what to do, because if we would have just said at that time, okay, we're going to cancel it because it's probably not going to happen, it would have been very likely for us to have to basically pay the full fee to the venue, which would have meant for us around 150K to pay for basically getting nothing. And that would have created a major and a serious effect on the EuroPython Society, especially our grants program. So what we did is we then started to talk to the venue about the situation, and very fortunately for us, the situation was less serious than it was, for example, for PyCon US, who had really big problems getting out of the contract. The venue was open to this because they had already entered discussions with other events about this topic of canceling the event, and so we decided then to basically cancel the event for the in-person event for this year, and then to move everything to next year, again in Dublin. So that was something that the venue agreed to, and we were happy with that. Now the next question for that was, of course, to try to think about a solution for this year, because we didn't really want to just give up and just have COVID-19 get in the way of basically breaking the series that we have, and making it impossible for people to come together, like you said, and join for the EuroPython event. And so the obvious choice was for us to try to go online, but we were not sure whether this would actually be accepted or not. So what we did is we did a poll, and I can show you some of the results here. So after this poll, we had pretty good feedback. So what we saw is that the community wanted to have a virtual EuroPython. You see here 78% wanted that. Most of the attendees wanted to have a virtual event and not just let it go and slip until next year. And we also found that people had obviously already made arrangements for the week of July 20th, when we had the original plan to run the EuroPython conference in Dublin. So people wanted to stick to that week. They also essentially wanted, I don't know if you can see this, maybe a bit small, they wanted to have us basically do more or less the same kind of conference, the same amount of topics, same amount of sessions and tracks as for the in-person event. So that was a very important takeaway for us, because we on the EuroPython Society board, we had discussions about whether to do this or not. One reason was that, like many people thought on the board thought that the in-person event is so engaging, it's so much fun. How are we going to replicate this, or try to replicate this fun and this engagement for an online event? So that was a big thing for us to decide. And now the feedback that we got from this poll showed us that there is interest in this, and people wanted us to go ahead with this, and they gave us encouraging comments in the feedback forms as well. So what we did then is we decided to basically make it happen, or to try to make it happen. Of course, for us, it was a very new thing, because no one had done this kind of thing before. Not an online event, not even at a small scale, like doing a meetup online. What we're talking about here is an event that has hundreds and hundreds of people join in. So it's going to be is significantly different from just running something small. You have to plan in advance, you have to train in advance, you have to prepare everything. And so it was going to be a lot more work for us. Also, after the decision was made, we unfortunately we had 2 board members step down because they didn't really, back up this online idea. They wanted to have just wanted to participate in an in-person event, which was unfortunate for us, of course, because due to that we just had 6 board members left. And because the board members are usually the most active people in the EuroPython organization, that was a big hit for us. So we had to struggle a bit. And in order to make things happen, we basically then had to shut down the in-person event and then start planning the online event. Now, online is different in lots of ways. You have to basically come up with a completely new budget because everything changes. All the on the cost side, you have different costs. You have the costs are not as high as for an in-person event, of course. You also have to rethink the pricing structure. You have to define new sponsorship packages. We had already talked to sponsors who wanted to sign up for the in-person event, and of course now we had to then ask them again whether they wanted to stay with us and do things online. So it was like a very big step to take, but we said, okay, we're going to do it. And we published that decision, and then we went for it. So we had to redefine the budget. We used the poll numbers as a guideline, basically taking our budget, which is for the online event is around 30K. We had to then make sure that we don't make a loss in the event. So basically we break even. We used the poll numbers, which was between 250 and 300 paying people. We used that to basically calculate everything, and we also had to lower the number of sponsors that we're going to get a lot to make everything realistic. And it turns out that the numbers that we used in the budget for the sponsorships are actually realistic. We have some trouble getting sponsors for the event, so it's not as easy. And at this point, we can say that the budget is working out, so we did the right thing. We had to come up with a new pricing structure. We chose to reduce the prices a lot, so it's only a quarter of the price that you pay for the in-person event. We had some discussions on the Telegram group around this. For example, some people thought that think that the prices are too high for an online event. Other people wanted to have everything for free. The point basically for us was we needed to make sure that the budget actually works out, that we don't make a loss in the conference. And the only way to do that was to use those prices and basically reduce the prices as much as we could. And of course, as we continue in the planning, we can always have a look at the budget again, and maybe we come up with some extras that we then give out to attendees closer to the event if we see that things do work out better than we had already planned. Now, for the sponsorship packages, we also had to find some way to basically make a booth for a sponsor virtual. So what we came out for that is we wanted to use virtual rooms for this, basically like the Skype session that you have here. One of these Skype sessions per sponsor, so that attendees can very easily then just join them and then ask questions there. Maybe they can do demos, they can do talks or training sessions. And we had to find basically a system that we can use to run the event, because we are going to have multiple tracks run in parallel. We are going to need to integrate the attendee interactivity into the event. So we wanted to have a chat system for this. And we also want to make it possible for attendees to interact with each other in other ways. So we wanted to have more than just one virtual room with audio video. And we needed to make everything fit together. So we had to do some research. We had to do lots of experiments. We put everything that we found online, and we posted that on the blog so that other conferences and other communities can benefit from this. And the documents are actually being put to good use by other conferences, which is nice because we spend a lot of time researching things and trying things out, trying to figure out how certain things work, which were not documented by the vendors, for example. We will have to do a lot of rehearsals, a lot of trial and error to figure things out. It's going to be a lot more work for the volunteers than for an in-person event. That's something that we already knew when we decided this, but you know, when we just had 6 active members left, we had to basically come up with some solution to this, and the solution to that was initially to downsize the event, to remove a couple of things like the training sessions we don't have, and we only have 2 days, not 3 days, just to make sure that we can actually handle this. We also participated in a number of online events, other online events, to get some experience. For example, a remote pizza we participated in, and we saw the issues that they faced, and we saw the things that went well and the things that did not go too well. So we basically use all that experience, we'll try to use all that experience in EuroPython and then improve on that. And we hope by basically sharing all this experience back to the community that we can also, you know, make it possible for other events to easily or more easily go online. Now, when it comes to selecting systems, of course, there are lots of systems out there. For example, chat systems, we could have used Telegram, we could have used Slack, we could have used, you know, many other systems out there, maybe even IRC. But we looked at all these different systems, and then we found Discord. Discord is a chat system which is used a lot in the gaming world. It's basically a chat system, but it also provides audio interaction, so you can have audio channels as well. What's very nice about Discord is that you can define a group of chat channels and into what they call a server, and then you can use that server to then you know, manage the access to the conference, manage people getting you know, getting to see certain things. It has lots of permission systems built in, so you can make it configure the server so that people will only see what they need to see. For example, all the admin channels that we use on Discord, attendees will not see, or sponsors will have different channels which only sponsors see. Speakers have channels which only speakers see, and so that things don't get too cluttered up. And then of course, we will have quite a few channels for the attendees to use, especially one channel for each track that we're going to run, but also channels which we open up dynamically based on, you know, let's say an attendee wants to discuss a certain topic, maybe, you know, Python in Turin, for example, and then we can open up a new channel just for that particular topic and then have people join that channel, to not, you know, have everything happen in one central hallway channel that we have. Then for audio video, we had a look at a couple of systems. We decided to use Zoom and Jitsi for this. Zoom you've probably heard of. Unfortunately, you know, there's lots of negative press around Zoom due to privacy issues and maybe also security issues. We looked into all of these things. We found that there are ways to configure things in a way that are a lot better than what you get by default. And in recent months, and weeks and months, Zoom has also tried to fix a lot of these things and is very responsive to all this criticism. So things are constantly getting better. The other system that we're going to use is Jitsi. Jitsi is an open source system. You can even run it on your own server, and this is also probably something that we're going to do. You can use Jitsi to run smaller rooms. So let's say up to 20 people, maybe even 30 people. It doesn't get much bigger than that, because if you go beyond that, then the Jitsi system is not really capable of handling that anymore. So for bigger rooms, we always have to use Zoom. Zoom is very nice for scaling. You can have, you know, 1,000 people in a webinar, absolutely no problem. And also the audio video connectivity is very much enhanced so that it's easier for speakers to go online. Right. So the next thing that we had to do is, because we already had the CFP running for the in-person event, we had to basically now convert everything to online. So the story was that we had to repurpose the ongoing CFP from an in-person event to an online event. So we had to ask all the speakers whether they actually wanted their talks that they had submitted for the Dublin event, whether they wanted to do these events in an online version as well. Unfortunately, most of the speakers actually were fine with this and went ahead. Then the next thing, because we saw that at the remote pizza event, where they had lots and lots of sessions from early morning until very late at night, we saw that lots of people from all over the world started to join these events. And we thought that, well, this is a chance for EuroPython, because for EuroPython conferences, we do have quite a few international participants. But the issue is that you always have to travel. You always have to, sometimes you have to travel very far. You have visa problems. You need to find accommodation. For an online event, all this goes away. It's much, much easier to join. So we added more slots, more time slots for the Indian, Asian, Pacific time zones, and also for the Americas. And we got a lot more contributions in the second CFP that we did. I see I'm closely, I'm starting to get out of time, right? So,
or maybe it's just good news. Maybe it was very positive message.
or that, yes. So let me just speed up a bit. So we need more volunteers because now we have lots more talks. We have over 110 sessions. We asked more volunteers, potential volunteers, and we now have 16 people helping with the track hosting, so things should work out. Next thing is that we have to train lots of people. We have to train us. We have to train the speakers. We have to train the sponsors. And to some extent, we also have to train the attendees to show them how things will work, because we are getting lots of questions, what can I expect? How is EuroPython going to be when it's online? Is it going to be, so different that it's, not worth going to? Is it something that will still deliver the content, that will still deliver the engagement? The point here, I think the main point here is that EuroPython has always been a community conference. So it's not a conference that someone makes for you. It's a conference that the attendees who attend the conference make for themselves. So it basically depends a lot on the people attending the conference, on whether it's going to be a good conference or not. And that's what I always tell people at the in-person event. This is your conference, right? It's just us, the organizers, are making it happen and, taking care of all the backstage stuff. But in the end, it's really the attendees that make the event so special and so nice. And so this is really the answer to that question is always that if the attendees are creative enough about these things and have enough enthusiasm, then I think it's going to be a great event. It's going to really make things, special again, even though it's online. And as you can see here, we will have fewer attendees, of course, but we will still have a quite sizable number, we think. Right, so I'm inviting all of you to EuroPython 2020. We will have more than 110 sessions, which is close to the in-person event where we have around 130 sessions. We'll have 4 keynotes, 2 lightning talk sessions where you can still submit talks. And we will hopefully announce the schedule very soon, maybe even later this week. And if you want to hear about the news, then follow us on Twitter, Telegram, LinkedIn, and all the other nice channels that we have. Thank you. Sorry for overrunning a bit.
It's good. It's good. I asked the next speaker, so he is warned. We can have some time for Q&A as well. I just cannot stop here. There are so many things to talk about, and this is the chance. So please, okay, our dear audience, post the questions in comments. You get a big round of applause from everybody. It was a good presentation. Already answered most of the questions, I would say, but nonetheless, if you have more, that is time to ask. Okay, so thanks. Since Thomas was saying you thanks, Marc-Andre, I also saw another comment from him. It was not really a question, but I will show it nonetheless. It's a bit pity to see mostly closed source commercial solutions, some even with bad privacy track, instead of FOSS solutions, so instead of open source solutions. It was not really a question, but maybe your comment on this, Mark. Did you try Jitsi?
I know that. Yes, we are going to use Jitsi for the sprints, for example. So for the sprint teams, we are going to have Jitsi because it's the sprint teams are going to be smaller, up to 20 people, and so Jitsi is the perfect solution for that. It also addresses all the security concerns, the privacy concerns, and so on. But the point is that if you want to go really big, like hundreds of people, and you don't have the capacity to install big systems yourself, then a system like, for example, Big Blue Button was mentioned, is simply not going to work out. This is not something that we can do because we have a limited number of resources available, a limited number of volunteers available, and they have limited time as well. We cannot work full time on this. No one can, and so we have to stuff it in somehow. These solutions simply don't work for us. So we have to turn to these commercial solutions to make things happen in that scale. It's the same reason, for example, why we're not going to a university to run the in-person event, why we're going to a commercial venue, large venues, to run the event there. Simply because they have lots of experience with running these things, and they can make things happen without us needing to manage everything.
Makes sense. Okay, thank you. We have more questions now, much more questions. Stefania comments that she's for sure going to attend more EuroPython talks at the same time. This is an interesting side effect. During the normal talk, it's kind of not nice to stand up and go to another track, but online you're switching as hell, nobody cares. You can really evaluate, like if you don't like the talk, switch to another one, as easy as that. So this is something that I personally like in this idea. But we have more questions. Besides, dear people, this tool that I'm using, basically OBS, is not recognizing emojis. So when you post applause, this is what I have. So sorry for that. that is applause, and you got a lot of them, Mark. Also from March and Kristen. Okay, next question. Which kinds of activities are planned for the attendees? Well, it's a general one, but maybe you can,
Right.
summarize.
So for the attendees, we will have first of all, we will have the chat system. The chat system is going to have a hallway channel where people can mingle, can talk, can discuss. We've seen that happen at the Remote Pizza event. It was working really nice. People really loved to, for example, open up new rooms and then start discussions there, or something that I found very, very interesting. And this is also something that we're going to have. After a talk, at the in-person event, you often go to the speaker and then ask questions to the speaker, and then maybe have some discussions with the speaker. We're going to have the same thing using the Discord system. We're going to have separate channels for the talks, so that attendees can then go there and talk to the speaker directly, basically off stage, so that they can exchange their ideas, their questions directly with the speaker, and get in close contact with them. So that's something that we're going to do. We're going to try to have a virtual social event. We're going to have to see what we're going to do there. Like, lots of ideas are flowing around. There's quite a bit you can do if you feel like it, like, karaoke maybe online, or you can have like dancing sessions, or you can have, online board gaming, or lots of things that we can do. So
you're full of ideas, I see. That's good.
Yes, we're evaluating a lot of ideas there, and we're also going to have an after party after the event on Friday. We have to see how that goes. Maybe we can have some kind of DJ or so. It depends a bit, on what the attendees want and what they feel up to. So we're pretty open.
The problem with the DJ on this show, because I would love to have it, is that YouTube automatically blocks everything that it recognizes as copyright protected. And for DJs, it's like everything, because you play a remix on something, YouTube bans it because the original sounds similar. That's from my side.
True, yes. So YouTube streaming will probably not work, but this is also something where the Zoom webinars will work out nicely because there you don't have these issues, right?
Yeah, you're right. And Stefania is supporting us with the yay online dance party. So you already have a demand. That's a good sign. Okay, we quickly go over more questions. Jürgen comments that that was about the emoji. Wash hands is not the worst idea in these times. Indeed it is. You're right. Last question was from Irina. So the next one from Lisa. Have you considered an option to make conference sessions 2-3 hours, but for more than 2 days? And then following up on this, the motivation was somewhere. I'm asking because it's difficult to spend the whole day in front of the monitor.
Yes, that's a valid question. We did consider this, and I actually, to be honest, I don't really remember why we didn't do it. I think the one reason for not doing it that way is because if you want to block a certain amount of time, let's say you're at work and you want to block a certain amount of time for attending such a conference, then it's easier to block 2 days in a row than to block, let's say, half a day here, half a day there, and then maybe half a day on the third or fourth day. So we wanted to make it more compatible with the in-person event. That's also why we kept a lot of the schedule as it is. We basically used Thursday and Friday, which would have been in the in-person event, would have been the conference days as well, and then we have Saturday and Sunday for the sprints. So the 2 days are going to be very intense. The nice thing about the online event, though, is that you can easily just step out, right? We are going to try to stream everything to the attendees to YouTube. YouTube has this nice feature of making it possible to go back in a live stream and watch things that you've missed, right after the event has happened. You can go back a few hours if you like. You can go back just a few minutes. We're going to have that feature, or try to have that feature available. We're also going to make the live streams available to the attendees after the event, so they can even watch these videos not live, but watch them after the event, so they can stretch basically their attendance a bit. And it's really, it's up to the attendees of how they want to manage their attendance. We are going to have a very full schedule. Maybe I can quickly show you this.
In the screen
Actually,
sharing?
I'm still showing it,
I can
right?
jump to the slides. I can jump to your screen if you open it.
Yeah, let me just show you quickly.
Okay, I'm jumping to your screen now.
So what you see here is the schedule, which hasn't been announced yet, but it's already, the website already has it. We're going to have these 4 tracks run in parallel. We're going to have a full PyData track here. And then you can see all the talks, which this looks a lot like the in-person event. And here you can see that the day is fully packed starting from 8 in the morning until down here 10 p.m. on the first day. And this is my time zone. This is CEST. Of course, in different time zones, it's a bit different. Then for Friday, we're going to start at 8 as well, but we're going to have talks, not the registration. We're going to have the Asian talks here. So these are all coming from Asian speakers. Then we're going to have talks from European speakers again, and then in the afternoon, we're going to have talks, and also going into the night, we're going to have talks from the Americas. Of course, we reserved some time here for dinner, right? So you can still have your dinner, and some of these blocks are not filled in yet, and then we're going to have the after party here. So this is the schedule that we're going to put on. This is going to be very long. As if you're an attendee, I would recommend that you basically you plan a few breaks. Once you get the schedule, you can then see where you want to make the breaks, and then maybe do a 1 hour or 2 hour break, and then join again. You can always, like I said, you can always go back in the streams, and then even after that break, you can still watch the videos of the talks and still ask questions to the speakers on Discord.
True. Okay, back to us. You can disable the screen sharing now if you like. We have one more question that I'm going to ask from the audience. Oh, this is a practical one. Pradvan is asking, when will the sprints be announced?
The sprints, well, the point here is that the sprints are actually being announced by the person, or each sprint is being announced by the person who wants to run a sprint, right? We make everything available, but the community has to come to us and then say, okay, we want to run a sprint on XYZ. And then they have to go to the website and then go to the python.org wiki page and then enter the wiki, the sprint idea or the sprint group on that page. So it's completely community driven. And I would very much like the community to start putting sprints on, because we are getting lots of registrations for the sprint days. We've made the sprint days free, so that you have to register on the website, but you don't have to pay for anything. We are seeing that lots of people are signing up for those sprints, and this is a huge opportunity for open source community projects to attract more people to their projects, to show them what their projects are about. But of course, all we can do is we can provide all the people, we can provide the facilities to run the sprint, but you have to run the sprint. So we need the community to basically come to us and say, okay, this is what I want to do.
True, true. People are saying thank you. Meanwhile, yeah, I think that we are through the questions, but I still have some. Mark, about the activity of community, since we've been talking about this anyway, CFP, was it more intense than last year or less intense? You think you have any negative effect of Corona from the speakers' side?
It was, I think I don't think that Corona really made much of a difference. It was the fact that they have to do things online that made a difference. So we had people who, well, first of all, in the CFP, we didn't have this rush of submissions like we normally do, right? So we did see that it had a negative effect on how many submissions you get, but we still got lots of submissions of really high quality talks. So it wasn't much of a problem for us, getting all the talks together that we wanted to get. In fact, as you saw, we had to open up a fourth track so that we can accommodate for all the nice talks that we received, and we gladly did so. I mean, of course, we had to find some more volunteers to run the show, but this was something that we gladly did. This is something that we saw with the Corona effect. Of course, the other thing is that we all would have liked to run the in-person event very, very much, and it's really a pity that we can't. But of course, you have to face the reality. Under these conditions, you simply cannot get together with a group of 1,000 people. It doesn't work, and it won't work for many more months to come. So it wasn't, even if even if the venue had time available for us later this year, even then we probably wouldn't have done it. The fact is that we couldn't even move the event to later this year because there wasn't anything. The only week that they have proposed to us was the week of Christmas. It's it's not really a good time to do a conference, and so we decided to just use more or less the same time slot next year.
Makes sense. Good. Thanks for answering this. Then one final thing. Since people are watching us and you said you need volunteers, maybe let's make a little call. Whom exactly is EuroPython looking for? Is it the track managers or people who will be answering on the help desk? Maybe if you pitch it a bit, who knows, somebody may contact actually.
We need people like you, for example, who can do session sharing. right? We need people who maybe are a bit more on the technical side, who can do room management. So like, arranging the webinars, making sure that the speaker gets online, basically what you do in one person right now. This we will need. We will need to have some people who help on the help desk, mostly before the conference, but also at the conference. We will have info desks at the conference. So we need some help there, which is basically about, writing to Discord chat channels. We also need people to, cheer up people on Discord, tell jokes like, lightning talks, maybe that kind of thing. So if you have something to contribute, whether it's technical, whether it's, whether you can easily socialize with people, whether you're, a comedian, whether you can play music, for the social event, for example, we might have some kind of, concert or so happening, right? I saw that in an online event as well. That worked really well. So, you just be creative and then we can make it happen.
Cool. Thank you. It was a nice ending, very optimistic. Now it feels like we are in a new era and we are just getting perfectly well adjusted to it. I hope that this session has clarified a lot of questions from everybody, especially those still considering attending EuroPython. And yeah, I hope that the community gathering will be even more epic than it usually is. And to you, Marc-Andre, then, I want to say a big thank you for finding this time. And I hope that everybody runs just fine, even better than it usually does. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. And sorry, Miro, for taking so much of your time.
All right, Mark disconnected, Boris connected. Boris, wave your hand. Are you live? Looks good. Okay, we need a break. So a couple of minutes break, get your beer, get your coffee, and then we plug in Miro with his final epic talk about the daily commute. For now, enjoy a solo of Boris, a couple of minutes, just Boris and his drums. So Boris, please get started. Great solo. Thank you very much, Boris. I don't know if it's just my opinion or it gets better and better every time. Last time we had a drummer, was also cool, but we missed you, Boris. Your solos, they are nice. They give this little spatial to the show. Can we hear you? Is your mic on? It is. We can hear you. Okay, Boris, maybe you just say hi to the audience, show yourself before we go forward with the agenda, because you are sort of a background voice, the effect of the show. So this is Boris. This is Boris. He's alive. He plays live for us. He is a developer or cloud architect, as they nicely say these days.
Yeah, that's true. So yeah, hey guys. So I have also blog. So I think I will create a new one. It will be a music one. So and I will, as Anton already mentioned many times, will add some music architecture there. How we did with this stuff.
This is interesting stuff. The link is in description always, so you'll find it there. But that was good. Thanks again, Boris. And you have a lot of support for our commenters. People love your performance. There is a lot of applause. They say it's a cool break. So I guess it's not just me. You are indeed doing really well. So now, big thanks to Boris.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks. And finally,
good evening.
Yes, Boris, can you give us one little favor? We need a proper introduction for Miro, our next speaker.
Sure.
All right. Then let's do it. Hello, Miro. Finally, it's great to see you. Thanks for waiting. I hope if you've been online, you understand why you've been waiting, because talks are so engaging.
I was not waiting. I was enjoying the talks.
Very good. So did all of us. Miro, how is life? How is Karlsruhe?
Karlsruhe is quiet since PythonDE left to Berlin, and in the past weeks it was even quieter. So I could work on my project that I'm going to present in a few minutes. So yeah, how are you in Munich? We haven't seen each other at the PyCon Web this year.
True, unfortunately. Munich is good. It's empty, but good. Now, as whole Europe, I guess people start going back on streets, but this is the new reality. So I'm happy that despite this new reality, we could gather Pythonists online to see some great content, including the talk that you will be presenting, which we are looking forward to. I have to admit, I missed it on PyCon Pizza, so I'm especially excited right now.
Now it evolved since then. So now I'm going to see how I share the screen here.
Okay, you're good to go.
Thank you. Okay, so hi everyone. Tonight I'm going to speak about one of the greatest inventions of the humanity. It's the city. The city that since centuries, many centuries, caused or helped the improvement of everything that we have today, of economy, science, and cultural life. This was an older invention, and there is a more recent invention about 400 years ago, Le Pont Neuf in Paris, and that was the introduction of separation of different types of traffic. So here, for the first time in the more modern history, we see something like sidewalks. But to get around in the city got a little bit more safe, but still it is not so easy to get around, because to get from A to B, there is not always one single way. There may be more ways, more possibilities how to get to some place within a city. As I said, there can be really many more possibilities. So nowadays you may want to tell, okay, I need some help, because usually when you just walk around or go somewhere, you can take different roads, different streets, and it's good to see a little bit of the city and then change your mind and take different roads. But sometimes you want to get somewhere as fast as possible. So then it is good to have some information what is the best way how to get somewhere within a city. Taking something like distance in meters or kilometers, it is not always the best idea, because in a city you don't always move on a distance. You sometimes need to get the information how long time do I need to get somewhere. For example, this is at the border between France and Germany. In Germany, for tourists, they use kilometers. In France, they use minutes and hours. So maybe we want to have something like time. How long time do I need to get somewhere? You cannot just travel at any speed you wish, because the cities don't look like this, fortunately. They look more like this. And if you are, for example, on a bicycle, now you have to decide on which side of the rails are you going to ride, in the middle or on the right side, but there are the doors of the cars that can be opened at any time. So it's not, everyone is going to at a different speed. If you take a public transport, you and me, we are probably going to arrive at the same place, probably in the same time, because we are going to take the same bus. If we both drive a car, different cars, then we are probably going to get there also at the same time, because you cannot just drive faster than other cars. But when you use individual mode of transport like bicycle, or if you walk, everyone is really very different, cyclist or different walker. On a bicycle, everyone will drive ride at a different speed, and probably some are even not going to ride on this track that you have to ride on, but there is always the danger that some door of the car will be open. And there are even streets in the city where you even can't ride at all, because there is non-existent cycle track. Are you going to put yourself in front of this car or next to it? So it means that your acceleration at the intersections will be different. And some are going to ride next to this vehicle, some not. Or do you think that this door of this car will get opened in the next seconds when you ride around it? So everyone needs different time to get from A to B when on a bicycle in a city. And even it is a city that has some strange ideas to put parking lots directly on the side of the tracks. Or there are some other points or some other events in the city that will stop you or will delay your arrival, and some other that will completely stop you and you will not be able to ride through. That's why if you are in a new city and you want to get from A to B, you can take some online navigation, pick the bicycle mode, and then, for example, here in Karlsruhe, as an example, I want to go from the palace to Gunteklotsanlage, which is a green area near the city center. If I want to take a bicycle, it recommends me 3 routes that I, as someone who lives in the city, would never take, because one goes on the busiest street in the city. In the south, the 15 minutes goes directly through the zoological garden that you are not allowed to go through. So why does this app offer me these trips? I'm not going to discuss the car navigation, which is of course real time and much better, but for the cycle navigation, maybe we can do something. I took a different app. This time it is based on OpenStreetMap. This looks already much better, and it also tells me you are going to arrive in 13 minutes. But is it me or is it you who is going to need 13 minutes? So I took my bicycle, went to the castle, started map tracking, GPS tracking, and then took the trip proposed by the right app, not by the left by the right app, by OpenStreetMap, by Osman. And I did it. Now you see that on the chart there are 2 red lights where I had to stop for up to 1 minute. But next time when I ride, it could be a little bit longer, a little bit shorter. And I can remember that there were places where I just had to ride much, much slower than I'm used to, because there were some other vehicles and some other traffic. And so one time I did exactly this track. I needed 13 minutes. Next time it could be 12 minutes, maybe 15 minutes. I don't know. So what I did, I took more tracks, but not always the same because it's boring and I don't always need to go from the palace to Winterklossenlage. But I took some other trips in this region or these places, and then I thought, hey, maybe I can do something with it. Maybe I can just cut these tracks into segments and then see, okay, if I need from A to B 13 minutes, but if I go between C and D, maybe I need a little bit longer or shorter. And I don't always have to go from A to B in order to find the best way from A to B. I can just try a lot of other trips because every day I'm around these places. And then maybe I can do something. I can let Python do some math and find the best trip for me. And this is how I created a project of PyGoHome, because I like individual urban mobility, so walking and cycling, which is very individual for everyone who moves by walking or cycling. I like OpenStreetMap. 12, 13 years ago, I did most of the northern Alsace and a lot of maps or a lot of places around Karlsruhe. I know already JOSN, that is an editor to work with OpenStreetMap material, but I can use it also to work with the GPS tracks. I like maps. Python, of course, there are some libraries that I have already used before, or some libraries that I wanted to learn a little bit better. Pandas and SciPy for the mathematical stuff. NetworkX, actually, to build a network of the roads, of the streets, and to find information about the best, or to find the best road. And Jupyter, IP Leaflet, and IP widgets for the visualization. I also wanted to run a whole project on GitHub. I have read the guide Hypermodern Python, which is, if you put this long tutorial, excellently written tutorial, next to some tutorial that says, oh, in Python you just need print hello world, then this is really a huge difference, because in hypermodern Python you learn how to set up the project with all the tests and pre-commit and GitHub actions and. And I also, as I'm using Jupyter and IP Leaflet and IP widgets for the visualization, I wanted to try MyBinder. That is an online service that allows you to run Jupyter notebooks directly from your GitHub account. And the most important about such project is to speak about it, to discuss with other people, and to learn from other people. The contributors, there are a few friends of mine who already had a look at the project, who helped me, who have much more experience than me in some aspects. And there are also some meetups, like Python Pizza, or now here at PythonShow, where I want to present it, and when I want to find people who are going to give me even better ideas. So back to my tracks. So this is how it looked like. Now I wanted to, I cannot just use directly the tracks. I have to, if I want to build a network of the city, I have to find the intersections. So I started JOSN. I think we have some time, so I can now really open JOSN and do some live coding. This is Java OpenStreetMap editor, and it allows me also to work with GPS tray. So what I do is I load all these GPX tracks from this region. I don't want to have them very well visible, so they're a little bit darker. And then just to imagine what objects are located, I put some map into the background. So and now here is the castle. I hope it won't break my internet. I think I will just switch it off. So and then I add a new layer, new data layer, and I say here is a castle. And then I do add name, and I add a tag to this waypoint. I say Schloss, and then I go here to oops, here, and I say this is name is so, and then what I see actually some of the tracks, GPS tracks that I did many more. I just chose some random list of them, and here, for example, here is a point where all the tracks arrive here, but one is going this way to the north and one to the southwest. So here I add another point and just let it without name. This is some part, one part that I would like to automatize in the future. Now I have to put all the dots manually, but I do it just everywhere, and then I save this as a GPX point, GPX file. So back to the slides. Yeah, so here I put one point with the name Schloss. Then I put dots all around, and then because the GPS has also some, is not always, of course, it's not exact. It has also always some tolerance. I found that if I say so up to 30 meters around my point, everything is considered to be next to the point. I will find, I can cut my tracks and say, okay, this track at this second arrived into the proximity of a waypoint, and then a few seconds later it left it. But there are some simple cross intersections like this one where there are no lights, so I can just turn left, right, anyway. But for example, here you see the lights, and maybe the lights are separate if I go to left or straight ahead or to the right. So what I check is if a certain amount or certain number of tracks spent more than few seconds, like 20 or 30 seconds within the 30 meters of a waypoint, I think, okay, I have to stop there. So very probably there was a light, and then what I'm going is to do is I'm going to distinguish from where to where I was going to. I'm going to show it a little bit later. And then I put all the dots, all the waypoints, and then there are some other waypoints like points of interest that are interesting for me that I want to have, because the whole project is not only just to get from A to B, it is to get all around, because also during the day I just go from A to B and C and D and visit different places. So for example, here I did a waypoint called ZM. It's a museum where the PyCon DE 2017 and 2018 took place. So, and this is what I said, how this works with the limits or with the waypoints. So first I have my tracks, and I see, okay, there is intersection in the middle. I know there is an intersection, and I see there is an intersection. So what I do, I put these waypoints with the radius of 30 meters, and then I say, okay, there were trips or tracks going from different between all the waypoints. So I will add edges, so connections between nodes, into my network, and add the information how long time I needed to get from one node to another. But as I told, there was a possibility that I have spent a little bit more time within the proximity of one waypoint. In that case, I will consider this waypoint to be lazy or slow or delayed, and in that case, I will create extra points around this and take into account also the time that I have spent within this intersection or within the proximity of this waypoint. This means that, for example, if there is an intersection with lights, and as a cyclist I'm allowed to go to the right without waiting, straight ahead there is one light, and to the left there is another light, and the light to the left needs much more time, I will take this into account, and maybe the program is going to avoid left turns, if possible. So there, of course, I did much more. So this is, for example, how it looked like at the bridge, or at the Rhine bridge near Karlsruhe. I also had to find some good points to put the waypoints, so they are 30 meters within my tracks and not within other tracks. Here, for example, on the right side, there are even 3 levels of roads of tracks. So GPS doesn't really recognize whether I am here or 5 meters above me. So I tried to avoid these points and put smartly my waypoints a little bit further around. There are also some constructions like this where I just don't have to do anything, but I can imagine if there was some automatic recognition of turns that it would put automatic waypoint here, although there is no need because I just went from the south to the north and vice versa. There are some round points that are not too large, so if I put a waypoint in the middle, it will consider the whole waypoint, the whole round about as one region and do the right calculations. And there are some larger roundabouts, even this is not roundabout who knows Karlsruhe, where I have to write around. So I put extra waypoints into each leaving street. And this way I knew that I passed through, I entered this region through one waypoint, and then I left it by another one. So there was a connection between 2 waypoints directly. So actually I was just connecting the dots. And when I had some spare time, I just looked onto my map and, oh, I didn't connect these and these streets, so I'm just going to make a short trip and connect the dots. So how it looks like in the theory, in the networks behind it. In this case, I have 9 nodes, A to I, and I took one trip, A, B, C, F, I. And it calculated the time I needed to get from A to B, from B to C, and so on. The next day, I went from A to I, but I went through D, G, and H. And already in this case, if one of the 2 trips was shorter or faster, it would already propose me that I should pass through G or so C. And then I just, on the 3rd day, I took a 3rd trip. And now you see that between A and B, I had already 2 trips, two segments, and 2 different times. And then there is already some probability, because between A and B, maybe in the middle somewhere, there are some lights, there are some different conditions, weather, traffic, people walking around, and so on. And for example, in this case, A to B, I could need, once I needed 20 seconds, another time I needed 40 seconds. And this means that next time, I think that if I hurry, if I'm lucky, I can get there in 20 seconds, sorry. But I'm not going to get there in longer time, in more than 40 seconds, because 40 seconds was until now my worst time. And that means that if I do some trip more regularly, for example, daily commute to work, there are some segments that I took 20, 50, 100 times in a year. So I will have quite a good statistics about it. And even I don't have to go from A to I. For example, here I went from G to C, and now it's even possible that the fastest way is A, B, E, F, I. But it depends on whether I want to have the fastest trip possible or the safest. The safest means that the slowest one, and just to make sure that I'm not going to be slower than that. Statistically, in this case, I experimented with the statistics module of Python 3.8, but in the current version of PyGo I use the quantiles. In this case, for example, let's say this is a trip between A and B on the main road in the city. There are some lights, so when I'm lucky, I get when it's green. When not, I have to wait. So it's very probably I will get there in 6 minutes, but maybe it will be 1 minute or 2 minutes less or 2 minutes more. On the other hand, there is a possibility that there is a park nearby and the trip is a little bit longer, but there are no lights, no traffic. So very probably I'm going to travel, to ride at the same speed every time. So this is the red line. I see that the mean time is longer through park than through the city. And if I say I want to be lucky, I just want to have the 10% or the quantile 0.1, so the 10 best percent of my trips. You see that going through the city is faster than going through the park. But I want to make sure that I arrive there on time. Through park, it will very probably take less than 7 minutes, but in a city, it will can take up to 8 or 9 minutes. So if I say I want to make sure, so I want to have 90% probability, then you see that going through the park is faster. And this is what the whole program is going to do. So I have some time. Do I have more time? I suppose yes. So this is the project that you can try out. You go to GitHub. Here are issues that you should just write. Anything that you think that you have an idea what I could do, and then you click here on Launch Binder. If you click on it, it will take some time. It will open the EuroPython notebook on a website, and you can do actually the same as you could do locally. Of course, to play locally, I recommend to do it locally. There is some installation needed, but you are all Pythonists that know how to do it. You are working with your personal data GPX, like movement data. You have to know what you do with your data, whether you want to run the whole stuff locally or remotely or binder. Okay, but if I run it already, this is on my local computer, but imagine if you run it on binder or a local computer. This is the EuroPython notebook. I import the go home, start it. Voila. I can now do full screen. So this is on my local computer. Then I can upload. I upload the waypoints. I already prepared them beforehand. So my 16 tracks and the waypoints, I just load them, flip, and then I can ask for the fastest route. And it looks, it gives me the list of all waypoints that I put into the waypoints, all the named one, not the intersections, but the named one. So for example, here I say Schloss, here I say Günther-Klotz-Anlage, and 80% is probably quite sure that I'm going to arrive there on time, and this is what I get. So it tells me that here it consists of all the segments that I have defined before, and if from each segment, if there are more than one record for this segment, it will just find the 80% percentile, and then try to find the fastest route, the fastest route. And now you see that for this I would need 12 minutes and 60 seconds, and exactly on this road, on some occasion I did it in 11 minutes, but I was never slower than 12 minutes and 44 seconds. Now I want to I just want to be lucky, and I want to find the fastest route. It will send this through here, and you see that okay, it is possible to do it in 9 minutes and 37 seconds. These are my numbers, so this is my speed, my way of riding. Everyone is going to have something different. But since there are a few lights, and here there are quite many people walking in the Waldstraße, sometimes I could need up to 14 minutes and 33 seconds. And then if I want to make absolutely sure, of course you can never be sure, but absolutely sure with these few tracks, it will choose this trip because the fastest one was 11 minutes, but the slowest one was 12 minutes and 44 seconds. So with a little bit luck, I will do it faster than 13 minutes. Going through the city will be very probably slower. So this is it. And now back. So this is, I wanted to make sure that my live coding doesn't work, but it worked. So you don't have to look at this. So this is, I go home. It works, what you have seen. Next ideas, or partially already done, is isochron map. So this would allow you to choose one spot, for example, your home, and to draw on a map like an island, like a mountain, or a graph that shows you all the places where you are able to arrive within 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes or more. This would show you actually very nice places where from your home you can just get quickly out of the city, and some other direction where there are a lot of lights or slow traffic. What I need to do is to detect GPS problems. So if there just it stops tracking for a few seconds or longer time, it shouldn't just skip longer distances. It should detect brakes, vehicle stop, because sometimes I just get off the bicycle and push it a little bit, yeah, or I just forget and I walk a longer distance without bicycle, and then I just save the track and work with it, and it will just break the data I have there. So detect and edit intersections is something that I have already experimented with. I wasn't very happy with it. If you know some library that does it, I will happily have a look at it. Machine learning, yes, you can apply some machine learning, for example, to distinguish what weekday it is, what daytime, so it behaves differently if it is at night, or Sunday in the morning, or Friday at 5 p.m. Maybe you can even enter information like what was the weather like, because if it is raining, you will write probably at different speed. When it is sunny, when it is hot, you are probably slower than when it is moderate temperature. OpenStreetMap integration, until now the project uses no map information. What you have seen with IP leaflet was just the background to get the idea where I am, but it uses no information because, of course, OpenStreetMap is much better for bicycles and for walking, but still there are some places where you don't want to use the data because, for example, there are some larger places like squares in the city that you can cross at any direction, and this information is not in the map. Or there are some crossings or intersections that you don't want to take. Yeah, so this is OpenStreetMap would be very general for everyone. PyGoHome is individual for everyone, personally. I could avoid or prefer tracks. Of course, if there's something like close street I want to know, or I want to give the information and I want to say, okay, now you can just take this street or this road, take it from Postgres, now it's completely in Python. Maybe there is a way to put everything in Postgres, and then it would be programming language independent, who knows? Or maybe more platforms, app or QGIS plugin. There are plenty of ideas that I have heard and that I had. Now it is important to see whether they are actually possible. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Miro. Big applause. You deserved your big round of applause. Also, as the last speaker, I think it's the latest talk that we had on the show at the moment. So thanks for staying so long. And now we go through the questions. Stefania was wondering about choosing the slowest and still safest path. Sometimes you've got time traveling in a new city. I will read the second part as well. It could be a cool idea to cross the slowest and safest path with the best city spot based on general touristic venues or personal interest. Well, yeah, it's an extra, but what do you think about it?
This program or PyGoHome leaves all the data on your computer. You don't share it with anyone, and it is only for you. As soon as I start giving the information about my city to foreigners or people or strangers, people from coming to my city, I'm already sharing the information. So the engine could be used, but currently the only information is about the time, because time is something that you can measure, and it is also something that people don't realize very well, because they think, okay, I want to go from A to B. They imagine a road, but they don't think about how long time it will take. So this will help them, but best way or the safest and most interesting, and then for visitors, this is a completely different project.
True. Also, kind of similar comment from Thomas. I sometimes want longer trips, but in nicer surroundings and on acceptable road quality. Similar thing. Yeah, it's a different use case, I guess, but it's a valid point as well.
Good quality roads. OpenStreetMap has the information about the quality of roads. If not everywhere, you can edit. So this is something that we could base it on. Yeah.
Okay. Jürgen asks, when you mark waypoints, does it have to be exactly on the recorded roads, on the tracked roads?
No, not necessarily, because if you go 10 times on the same road, sometimes your GPS is like 10 meters to the left, 10 meters to the right. You just put it somewhere that the circle of radius 30 covers at least one track point from each track that crosses this intersection.
Right, thanks. And final question, I guess. Great idea. So you already use NetworkX. Do you know about OSMNX? This may help you with OSM integration.
Yes, as it will milestone somewhere in the future.
Okay. Then Martin suggests you to submit your talk to GeoPython. It makes sense, right? It's a perfect use case. So maybe we can hear it yet another time. Martin, is the GeoPython online or is it offline? Are you optimist or are you realist? Valerius says, thanks, Miro. Jürgen says, thanks. Well, we have a lot of thank you comments, which is kind of expected because it was a good talk. Yeah, Miro, last year, you maybe know I cycled to EuroPython from Paris to Basel. I missed this. I wouldn't be using it because I didn't have tracks on that roads, I guess. But still, from your talk, I learned that OpenStreetMaps has good quality information of bike roads. In France, I guess it's even better because there are many cyclists in France. It's sort of a popular thing there, I guess.
In 2008, I went by train to the westmost point of France in Bretagne. And then in 2 weeks, I returned by bicycle to the easternmost point of France. I had Garmin tracker with me, and I mapped for OpenStreetMap. And it was beautiful because sometimes I rode for 50 kilometers and the map was blank. In 2008, OpenStreetMap in many regions was really blank. So I was the first one who crossed the whole département on a bicycle and tracked the first road. So actually there was no road network. There was just one cyclist that crossed the département. These were great times. 12, 13 years ago, you could do quite a lot for OpenStreetMap. Now, on bicycle, it's difficult to find something that is still not there. So yes,
True.
you should use it actually for your trips.
I used it. I tried so many apps, but I don't know. It's hard. It's not. Cities are easy. The roads between cities is the hard part. And again, then there is a question of the quality of the roads as well as of the sites. You just don't want to go on the fastest one. You want to see. It's many compromises. But I really love that there are developments in these directions. So, good job, Miro. Thank you also for your talk as well as for presenting it. Maybe we can post a link in the description to your GitHub project. Who knows? Maybe somebody joins you.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, Martin says GeoPython 2020 is cancelled. Yeah, that's life. I mean, PyCon Web is cancelled as well. So I'm in the same boat with you about this. This is sad, but I hope that next year it works out with a double power. So all the best and good luck, and maybe we see Miro there as well, in person, not just online. Meanwhile, yes, we jump now to the Skype call. So I posted the link in comments. Who wants to stay, stays. Who wants to leave, leaves. I will stay till the last visitor. It is this call which we have with other speakers, so you can chat with all of us kind of off record, not broadcasting this to YouTube. So we will now stop the YouTube broadcast and just continue in this public Skype call. I say big thanks to all of our speakers, to Marc-Andre, to Stefania, and also to you, Miro, of course. It was a long one, late one, but very, very good one. And thanks also to Boosted Boris, who supported us. His battery is out. I know he wrote me, oops, never had such a long Python show yet. So it's a good indicator we are moving forward. Miro, I invited you. You've been one of the first speakers I invited actually to the show. So I'm happy it finally worked. So I hope to see you maybe on EuroPython. Who knows what is the next event that we'll go to. Great. So nice evening to everybody. And I see you next Thursday. We already have speakers. Stay tuned. Bye.
Bye. Night.